Okay, so we're back again, and let's get started on this part 2 of this widget build. Originally I was going to mold this part 2 ways. First was going to be loose, so I made, of course, the pattern and the gating system. I could set them on the board anywhere I felt like it and cast them that way. And I don't really like that. I always like mounting my patterns on a board. Just me, I guess. So what I do is set the pattern on the board, gating on the board exactly where I want it, and then I trace around it. Since there's nothing it's really got to line up with in the cope, except 2 risers and the down sprue. So, laid those out. Of course, they're laid out here on the bottom of both pieces, so I know where those holes are. These holes correspond with those, and what I will do then is glue, because I may just make this temporary setup, but glue these pieces, pattern and gating system, to the board. So let's do that now. All I got to do is line up the lines. These holes don't have to be 100% accurate because there's nothing up there that really lines up with them other than some risers and down sprues, so not a big deal. So let's get these things glued on here. I just use regular old yellow glue, if I can get the thing open. So we got yellow glue, and gotta see where I'm at here. I just put a little bit around the perimeter where I need it. Not a big deal, really. All it's going to do is kind of hold it in place, and if I feel I need it, I will probably add some screws into it later. So set this on here, squeeze it down, line it up with the lines, and you're good to go. So I'll let that set for a few minutes, and we'll get on to the next one. Okay. It's somewhat set up now, so let's glue this piece on again. Doesn't matter exactly how much glue I got on here because it's probably going to end up being just a temporary setup anyway. Once I get the widget all done, cast, I will probably take it off the board and stick it on a shelf someplace. Okay. Again, we'll let that set up for a while and see how it looks. Back to you in a bit. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to put a 16th fillet around the pattern and gating system. This helps me control the flash on the casting itself. I got full control over it. Now the board, match plate if you prefer, and the pattern and gating system have both had 2 coats of clear lacquer put on top of them. This will help the wood patch that I'm using stick to the board and the pattern. I will use a scraper to scrape the fillet clean, get any excess off there, and then sand it. Whole process took me about 14 minutes, and I just sped it up so you don't have to sit there and watch the whole thing if you don't want to. Yeah, another thing I'd like to point out is when the pattern and gating system were glued to the board, since both the board and the pattern and gating all had 2 coats of paint on them, sanding sealer anyway. When I go to pop these off the board, they've only been glued down. They'll come off very easily. Screws might have been better, but then I got to putty up the holes on the back side. So this was just easier. And since I can reuse the board, there are no holes drilled through it other than the little pinholes. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm scraping the excess putty off. The tool I'm using is a scraper I made. It's got about a 1/16 radius on the end, and it just gets the excess off, so it's going to be a lot easier to sand. Okay, so when you finish sanding, you think you got it all good, pick the pattern up, board up, inspect everything, make sure you don't have any globs of putty that could create a problem. A glob of putty on a vertical surface will cause a backdraft situation. You don't want that, so I just pick it up and inspect whatever I can see, sand it off as required, and then I think it's ready for paint. Take sanding sealer, lacquer thinner is right here, and I thin it out pretty good, and I think I'm going to add some here. Just to make sure. And let that sit in there for a little bit. Take care of that later. Now, I need a stir stick. Here we go. when you're putting on the first coat of clear lacquer, since I brush it all on, you want it fairly thin. Really thin, actually. And make it about like water and put 3-4 coats on by the time I'm done. Okay, I think the paint is set up hard enough. So normally I wouldn't do this in a pattern shop if I was working at a job shop especially. We'd put 3 coats of pattern lacquer on a job. Last coat would not be sanded or anything, it would be the final coat. But since it's for my foundry and I like things the way I like them, because I'm maybe weird. Anyway, I take 3 or 4/0 steel wool and I just kind of scuff over the whole thing. Make sure I don't have any runs, any kind of paint on there that could cause an issue. It doesn't take much. Just verify that everything is nice and smooth. Draws out of the sand easy. And like I said, it doesn't take much. And if I had my air hose set up right now, I'd blow it off with that, but I don't. Got to exercise my lungs after that other crap anyway. So normally, when I am making a mold and ramming it up myself, for me, I ram with the pins in the drag. So, this being the drag, I will put it in like so. And as you can see, I already got the risers and stuff set up on the coat. Let's try this again. And there's that. Alright, there it goes, okay. So, what I'll do is, there's the drag, but you notice I got a problem. Yep, if you look at it, I only have about less than 1/4 inch of sand above this. So what I will be doing is adding an upset here. Gives me about, this is a 1 inch upset, so it gives me about 1 1/4 inches of sand, which is plenty. Ram this side up, and flip the whole thing over. I then have this a blind riser. This countersink here is what we call a cracker. It helps metal break, and because the dome surface is very strong, so we put what we call the cracker in there and that helps the shrinkage into the casting, or toward the casting, not into it. This is an open riser, neck down riser. As you can see, I got it right here. It's neck down. That goes in there, and my down sprue. I got my fillets around here. This has all been painted and taken care of. That's all that's in the cope. So, and the reason I do it this way is, one, I can see the pins. Take those out when I'm ready to pull the cope. Put my fingers here. Pull the cope off. Set it to the side. Pattern's released. You can pull this end out. Pull it up like so. You're pulled out. The drag mold would be there. I'll get in more to this when I actually ram it. But that means everything pulls out easy. I don't really have to ram on the flask at all because I'm using my fingers to pry this thing up. I can grab it like so and start just pulling it straight up. Now it's up far enough and I lift straight out. So that makes it real easy for me and gives me a nice clean parting because I got fillets around it. And in the long run, the idea behind any casting is to get a good, clean casting that anybody working in a foundry can clean up easily and quickly, mold quickly. Because like I say, I may make one part like this. And for a part like this, a foundryman may make 50 to 100 parts. Hard to tell. Make it as easy on them as you possibly can. I'll talk at y'all later, and if you have any questions about why I do things the way I do, feel free to ask me. Next video should be about casting and making the cores, CO2 cores. Anyway, we'll make CO2 cores in a flask and hopefully pour some metal within the next month anyway, I hope. Talk to you later. Bye.